Man, the past 18 months have been a ride. And I cannot say that it's always been a fun one. This video was going to be only a recap of 2022, but when I started to think back on the past year, I realized that the roller coaster of 2022 started with a chaotic ending to 2021, like the second half of 2021. And honestly, we could even go back to like just a little bit before then. So let's just start from the beginning. In the very beginning of 2021, I decided to go back to school for a second bachelor's degree in computer science. My job at the time offered tuition reimbursement, so it made sense to go back and get a degree for my transition into tech. However, they made it very clear on numerous occasions that work was the priority over school. So through various conversations and negotiations and trying to make things work, eventually I ended up quitting my job so I can focus on school full time, because the degree would put me in the direction of where I wanted to take my career, and I felt like I was young enough to take a leap to pivot my life. I was young enough to still bounce back. So I make that big decision, and about 3/4 of the way through my second semester, I learned that I would no longer have financial aid. So it just felt like a block at that time that made me take a step back and reevaluate if this is what I wanted to do and if I should continue to pursue this path. While taking a step back to think and figure out what's next, I was like, well, I'm not working and I'm not in school, but I do have this business that I want to start, and it would be easier if I could go to California to visit the fashion district instead of trying to order things online and they're not the proper sizing and fit and things like that, because I had gone through that before. I'll go to LA for a few months. That'll give me some time to visit these vendors and also just figure out the next steps in my life. And I don't know if it's something about like the air in California. You know how like all influencers move to California? I don't know. It was, once I got there, I just had this inner sense that, you know what, I should just focus on trying to be a full-time content creator, because that's something that I've wanted for a while. Back when I was like maybe a freshman in college or younger, that's what I thought I would do. And that's actually when I started my first YouTube channel. And if you know me personally, you know that I have had multiple YouTube channels over the years. But yeah, I decided to focus on some of the goals that I've kind of had my entire life, and that was creating content and putting myself out there more as an actor and a dancer. But during that time in California, I was staying with a family member, and that person really was putting a lot of pressure on me to get a job. I'd had this resolve that, I'm here to grow as a creator and put myself out there more and see what happens with that. But they kept asking me, like, okay, well, when this comes up, how are you going to be able to contribute? What's next? Like, just a lot of pressure. So that's when I started looking for jobs again. But I knew that I didn't want to go back to where I'd come from. I wanted to keep moving forward. So if I was looking for a job, I would have preferred that it be in tech, in the direction that I was trying to go. So one day I just randomly Googled entry-level jobs Los Angeles, and that's how I found out about Revature. Now y'all already know the whole story about Revature, and if you don't, here's a playlist where you can watch all the videos. Now I ended up not staying there, of course, and when I decided to leave Revature, my plan was to redo the projects that I'd done in the training and apply to some jobs, especially ones where I knew I would get an interview, where I like knew people in the company and who worked in the tech department. I even thought that I might jump into 100 Devs and finish out their cohort with them, but in the end, I just did not have the motivation to do either. I really just wanted to get to work. So in that time post Revature, I applied to a lot of apprenticeships because that seemed like the perfect opportunity to still learn, like not be expected to know everything, but like they know that you're here to learn. That's the whole point of being an apprentice. But I didn't make it past the technical assessment for most of the companies, and that's even if I was invited to do one. During this time, I also had a cool opportunity to interview for a support engineer role, and learning more about the role, it really seemed to be more my speed, at least to get my foot in the door. But I think I played myself out of that opportunity, and you can find out more about it in this video. So this is all what's going on in my professional life. In my personal life, there have been some changes too. I traveled home for the holidays and I just stayed. The plan was to return to LA after Christmas, and I just kept pushing back the date until eventually in like mid-January I was like, you know what, I'm comfortable here, I'm just gonna stay. And part of that was the fact that I started hanging out with someone and I saw the potential of it growing into a relationship, which it did. So I started dating in January and it went really well. We went on a lot of fun dates, and this was probably like the best time that I've had in a relationship in a long time. So for the most part, my personal life was going really well, but I was still at a loss about what I wanted to do in my professional life. I decided to look into other tech-related professions that did not involve coding. I looked into UX UI design, data analytics, Salesforce. I think that's it. So this is when I first came across implementation, which my dream role at that time would have been to land a job as a Salesforce implementation consultant. But every role I came across, and even the I think he was like the director of recruitment at a company that I was particularly interested in and applied for, he let me know that I needed to have a little bit more experience building Salesforce orgs. I ended up finding that to be a common theme across different companies that I was looking at. And at this point, again, I was very much over learning and building projects. So I decided to apply for a role as a payroll implementation consultant. The particular company that I applied for, I was pretty certain that I would get the job based off the job description, and I did. It all happened like fairly quickly, but yeah, it was definitely not the right move for me. In hindsight, like, yeah, I could have stuck it out. I really liked the company and the culture, but I just could not get jiggy with payroll implementation.
This is whack. I can't get jiggy with this.
It felt like I had spent all this time learning all these skills related to programming and coding just to end up settling for a mediocre role that had nothing to do with everything that I had learned and what I had come to enjoy. So when I got the chance to work for a company that was similar to Reviture, I jumped at the opportunity. It felt like my hard work was finally paying off, and I was finally gonna get the chance to get that first role doing what I've been wanting to do, what I've been studying to do, okay, what I've been trying to do. Multiple opportunities came up through this company as it was a contracting position, and I was really excited for each and every one of them, even one that was going to be moving me to DC, and I had accepted it and was like ready to pack my bags and go. But unfortunately, none of them worked out, not a single one. And in the end, the non-compete clause with Reviture stopped me from moving forward with the company altogether. This kicked off a bout of depression. Career pursuits were just not working out for me yet again, which felt like a repeat of 2020 and 2021. And just when I felt like I was making a breakthrough with Skillstorm, I was let down. And this time, not because I didn't believe in myself. I literally earned my spot in that role, and yet I still found myself blocked from getting into it. So naturally, I began to question if this was the path for me at all anymore. I really spent most of my days after that in my room pondering life. And I had things going on at this time, birthday celebrations, family trips, and I could show up for the people in my life and be present for them. But the moment I was back home, it was back to ruminating on what I felt like was an awful life at the time. To add to that, my relationship was no longer in a good place. My depression, combined with the fact that I was not even willing to, I actually accepted a job in another state. That put pressure on things between us. While we did stay together for a couple more months after that, ultimately we broke up. And that was one of the hardest things about this particular time in my life. I just felt so unseen and unheard by the people closest to me. My mom knew that I spent most days in my room, many of those days not even eating, but she felt it best to leave me alone to process. When I did try to talk to her about my feelings and how I wanted to really work as a software engineer and it just wasn't working out, her response was, well, you know you have to have a job, right? And I'm like, we are obviously having two different conversations right now. And instead of trying to get her to understand me, it just was easier to continue to be misunderstood and just keep stewing by myself. But technically, she was right about that one thing. I did need a job. My bills were not going to pay themselves. So I took a job doing legal administrative work. And I could have easily stayed in that position. But I know myself, I would not be able to stay somewhere that I'm not fulfilled in any way. Like at some point, I'm going to snap out of it, the slumber, whatever hypnosis I'm under, and wake up one day and be like, girl, what are we doing? And for me, I'd rather make drastic changes in my life right now while I am unmarried and I don't have children, no obligations to tie me down to a particular place or a particular career, anything like that, because I don't want to wait until I'm married, have a home, and all these responsibilities to then wake up and be like, wow, I'm miserable and I feel too stuck to change things. Which is part of the reason why the past couple years have given me whiplash, because I've been changing directions. But anyway, after much back and forth with myself and a few conversations with those around me and who I feel know me well, I ultimately decided that returning to LA was the thing I needed to do. Even if for nothing else than like a change of scenery and better weather to help boost my mood, to just like give me that boost to start climbing my way out of depression. And so I went with literally the same plan to go to the holidays, like till the holidays, work on my business while I'm there, and then this time the plan was to come back and just kind of see what's next. But yeah, it was basically the same plan as 2021. But my sister was already in Atlanta visiting, so she canceled her return flight and she helped me drive my car cross country. So as you all can probably guess, I am a person who kind of goes with the flow of like how the dominoes are falling, I guess. But that doesn't stop me from making a plan. I just know how to shift. I don't get stuck to my plans, we'll say that. So the plan when I got to LA was to get back into Ravature. But after just a few days of me being there, once again, like the spirit of LA just came over me. And I was like, you know what? I think we need to stay. Like, why not? My mood was already 10 times better. And honestly, I was already seeing a lot of ease with the way opportunities and circumstances were kind of flowing for me to take each step in the progression of me making that move and the following steps once I got there. So that's what I did. I stayed. I did not even go home for the holidays. I spent the holidays with friends and honestly had a blast. And I'm glad that I did something different for the first time in a few years. I don't know. It just felt like what I needed for myself and for like the developments that are happening internally. So anyway, I thought I would get a job with Ravature and settle down in LA if they didn't require me to move once I was on a permanent assignment. But I wasn't able to get into paid training immediately. So I decided to get a part-time seasonal job working overnight at Target. That way, once Ravature training did start for me, I would be able to do my training and also still keep my part-time job. And aside from the manual labor and my fingers getting tore up and raggedy from opening all them boxes, I enjoyed the ease of what I did every day at Target. I really liked the job. I didn't have to deal with customers and I liked the people that I worked with. Eventually though, when it comes to Revature, I came to the conclusion that I just would not be moving forward with them. There were just too many hiccups in the process, and I likely was not going to be starting training until March, and that was just too far out for me. Like, I felt like it was putting my life on pause a little bit, and I'm like, I needed motion. So I thought I'd just find another day job to continue to pay the bills while I continue to study. But then I took some time to reflect and think about everything that has gone down over the past year, past 18 months, and I was very much over it. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. As much as I enjoyed coding and the process of problem solving through programming, the whole job search process was very much anxiety inducing for me personally. And at this point, it was clear to me that I was obviously trying to force it, and I was just not gonna make fetch happen.
Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Like, I was just causing myself mental exhaustion. I even thought for a moment there to pivot into data analytics because it was technical enough for me to feel challenged and engaged in my work, but not so technical to cause me stress. But before just making that decision to jump into learning data analytics and any kind of programs or self-teaching and trying to commit to that, I was like, let me just get settled first. So I just started looking for other jobs in LA, in any field really, because I was making plans to stay there and I needed to find a job. But nothing stuck, nothing. Even jobs that I was like, sure I was gonna get. I even had an interview for a payroll implementation job, 2 interviews I think, and we know how I felt about payroll implementation, and I thought I nailed the interview, but I didn't get the job. I think they decided to go with someone who had more experience in payroll implementation because my only experience was at my time with the one company, but I took that as a blessing in disguise because yeah, very much was not feeling it anyway, and I was just gonna be putting myself through something that I didn't want to do most likely. But yeah, since nothing was sticking in LA, I eventually decided to apply for a hybrid role in Phoenix for an employer that I worked for previously. And from what I had knew or learned from people who currently work for the company, the expectation was that I was only going to have to be in office for like 1 or 2 days a month. So I was like, yeah, I can manage that from LA. So I went through the process and I got the job. But I learned from my recruiter that I do have to work in office 25% of the time. So that's 1 full week out of every month, which honestly I could still manage from LA, but I decided to just take on a new adventure because why not? Cost of living is cheaper in Phoenix anyway, and I'm close enough to LA that when I want to go to do stuff, I can just go to do stuff. Phoenix is somewhere that I have been interested in for some time. Like when I first started working with Revature, when I thought about where there was a possibility of me being placed, Phoenix was like top 2 on my list. So yeah, when the recruiter said, you know, you're gonna need an address in Phoenix, instead of committing mail fraud and using my cousin's address, I decided to just relocate. Like a whole new fresh start, I can get jiggy with that. I need that. One of the things that I decided going into closing out 22 and going into 23 was that I didn't want to force anything. I just wanted to go with flow, especially seeing the way that things laid out for me once I got to LA. Like each step just seemed like it was prepared for me. I knew which paths I should take, which opportunities I should take based off of the peace and ease that came with them. Of course, I pray about every decision because peace and ease doesn't necessarily mean this is the right thing you should do. In 2023, I just want to move with flow and not try to force things. So I decided to take the fresh start, and with that fresh start, I am letting go of tech as a whole. When I first decided to pursue tech, it was because I didn't want to be a starving artist. I wanted a stable career while I pursued the things that I really wanted out of life, like acting, dancing, creating content. It was supposed to be a means to an end, a livable means to an end. But somewhere along the journey, it became just the end. And here I was enduring a life of chaos, straight chaos, chasing something that was never even my dream. It was a settle, just to call a spade a spade. It was my way of settling safely and comfortably, just in case my real aspirations didn't work out. Back in December, I lost a family member, a younger cousin who was 19 years old and had so much of life ahead of him to live. And it got me thinking about how our time here on earth really is limited. I realized I probably shouldn't spend my limited time here pursuing a dream that I'm not really sure that I want, that may not even be my dream. Like, where did this dream come from? At this point, it's a nightmare. And then also in December, the news broke about the passing of Twitch boss. And it hit me so hard. Not just because he was someone that I admired as a dancer and a creator, but because he chose to take his own life. I remember being on a three-way call with my mom and my sister that day, and they were talking about there's no way that it could be suicide. He was just so happy, and why would his wife go straight to the police station just because he left the house but didn't take his car? And I already knew the details internally, like personally, because it could have been me that some other family was having this conversation about. I've never shared this with anyone, and I've honestly never spoken it out loud, but during my lowest point last year, I was battling suicidal thoughts, like literally contemplating taking myself out of here. But I had no hope for the future at that time, which sounds crazy now saying it, because it seems like it was just over losing a job. But it was just so much more to me at that time, like so many disappointments piling up year after year, and it just felt like, what have you got to live for? And I know there's a hotline for people to call when they're in these situations, having these thoughts, but in the moment, I wasn't thinking about no hotline. I was just thinking about how tired I was, how exhausted I was, how I felt like a failure, how there was just nothing to look forward to. Like, what's the purpose of still existing? So I had to find something to live for, something to be hopeful about, and at that time it was the move to LA. It gave me a hope for something new. You know, I know there's the rhetoric out there that people make all these changes to kind of run away from depression, and you can't outrun your thoughts, pretty much. But for me, that was exactly what I needed. The prospect of starting over in a new city where I could build my business and build new relationships, it gave me something to look forward to. Thankfully, and let me tell y'all, I am so good now. I feel the best I have in a while. Of course, I'm no longer staying in LA. I'm actually in Atlanta right now. But I am even more hopeful about Phoenix, because now I'm dropping off even more dead weight that was holding me down, and that was pursuing tech. I was so busy studying, networking, looking for jobs that I wasn't doing the things that make me happy. I was just so hyper focused on making this transition that I blew off everything else. So if I'm gonna give any advice in this video, it's that for those of you that are still in the transition, like, don't neglect the other parts of your life. Like, it's really not that big a deal. While it's important to have a stable career, your career does not have to be your life. So I know that me quitting tech altogether will come as a surprise to some of you that have connected with me outside of YouTube, but this is my life. And I just can't do it anymore. I mean, physically I can, but I don't want to. And what's funny is people have tried to talk me into not quitting tech altogether, because it's the thing that caused me to have some level of influence, caused my YouTube channel to grow. And so it's like I should continue to cater to my audience, right? Sure, if that's why I was doing this. I started sharing my journey about Revature because when I was looking them up, I could not find any recent information. And I figured there must be some other people out there who want to know too. Like, this seems way too good to be true, and I gotta see what's up because I'm nosy, and I'll just be the guinea pig for everyone else. But the whole point was to genuinely help other people who may be curious about the opportunity, and I think I've succeeded in that. So now I feel like I can move on with peace. I do still have some videos that I want to record and upload about Revature and about tech in general, based off of questions that people have asked me and conversations that I've had outside of YouTube. But beyond that, probably won't be too much more tech content on this channel. I mean, it was really never meant to be a tech channel anyway. I started this channel to share my journey of living a life with childlike faith. Oh, I'm wearing a shirt that says faith today. And now that I say that out loud, actually, I can hear the irony in this whole situation, because the intentions behind my tech pursuits were the total opposite of having childlike faith. So it's definitely time to let go. But with that being said, I am looking forward with expectation for what's next. Do I have the job of my dreams? No, but it's a job. And it is okay for it to be just that for me. It's a livable wage and gives me the time, space, and freedom and money to do the things that give me joy. Before, I was working a 9-to-5, then basically spending my 5 to 9 time studying to have a new 9-to-5 in tech. Now I can clock out of my 9-to-5 and go live my life however I want to do so. Go dance, go create content, go take an acting class, go do pottery lessons, go for a hike. It don't matter. Anything but study. And sure, I may change my mind later, but for now, I just want to be happy. That looks like focusing on and investing in my real passions going forward. So, here's to new beginnings. I hope to see you guys around for the rest of the journey.